Love is the state in which man sees things most widely different from what they are. Nietzsche warned us, love blinds us. But power? Power never lies. It reveals, it strips, it dominates. What if the love stories we tell ourselves are illusions, while the real story, the one hidden in psychology, in history, in the unconscious, is about power? Why do so many women, across time and cultures, secretly choose power over love? And more importantly, what does this mean for men who still believe love is enough? Love has always been the most intoxicating of illusions. It whispers of eternity, of two souls merging, of passion uncorrupted by calculation. But beneath the poetry of sonnets and the soft glow of candlelight lies something far older, far more primal: survival. The human story is not written in flowers and vows, it is carved in blood, in hunger, in the ruthless pursuit of continuity. Women, more than men, have always been bound to this truth. For while men could gamble and wander, women carried the heavier burden, the womb, the child, the responsibility of ensuring life endured. And when survival is at stake, love becomes a dangerous luxury. Carl Jung warned that archetypes live beneath our civilized masks, shaping us in ways we do not admit. And one of the oldest archetypes is that of the woman who chooses not with her heart, but with her instinct for preservation. This is the anima not as muse or lover, but as strategist. When a woman gazed upon a man in the ancient world, she was not seeing his eyes or his smile. She was seeing his strength, his ability to protect, his status among the tribe. To give herself to a weak man was to risk extinction. To choose a powerful man was to secure not only her survival, but the survival of her children. Love was never the foundation, it was the mask, the story told afterwards to make survival feel beautiful. Imagine the ancient campfires. A woman sits in silence while warriors return from the hunt. Her eyes do not drift toward the kind-hearted boy who carries water. They drift toward the man dragging the carcass of the beast, his chest marked with scars, his authority unchallenged. To love the boy is to starve, to align with the hunter is to live. And so love bows before power, willingly, instinctively. We call it attraction, chemistry, destiny. But behind the veil, it is calculation. Even in myth, this truth is buried like a coded message. Helen of Troy was not simply a woman stolen for beauty. She was the prize of kings, the spark that ignited war, her body a battlefield for power. Cleopatra did not fall for Caesar or Antony because of romance. She aligned herself with the most powerful men of her age, using seduction as weapon, love as camouflage for ambition. These stories survive not because they are tales of affection, but because they are warnings. When women choose, it is rarely the heart that speaks first. It is the ancient survival mechanism, whispering, "Find the strongest, the most dominant, the man who bends the world to his will." Modernity has not erased this instinct, it has only dressed it in finer clothing. Today we speak of romantic choice, of following the heart. Yet study after study reveals the same pattern. Women prefer men of status, wealth, or influence, even if they protest otherwise. The instinct is unconscious, older than civilization itself. It is not greed. It is not shallowness. It is survival disguised as desire. For a man's power, whether material, social, or psychological, becomes a woman's shield against the uncertainties of life. This is why love so often feels fragile when measured against reality. A man may love with reckless abandon, willing to sacrifice everything for beauty. But a woman must calculate. To choose poorly is not only to doom herself but her children. Thus, what we call female choice is rarely romantic freedom, it is strategic allegiance. The heart follows the survival map written in her blood. And so, what men experience as heartbreak, the abandonment of love in pursuit of security, is, for women, the oldest law of existence. Love is sweet, but it cannot feed a child. Love is intoxicating, but it cannot protect against the violence of rivals. Love is a candle, flickering in the storm. Power is the fortress that endures through the night. And when faced with the choice between the two, women, bound by archetype and instinct, have always chosen the fortress. Freud once said that love is never innocent. Beneath every caress, every kiss, every whisper of devotion, there is something darker at work. Desire, he argued, is a mask. It pretends to be about affection, but in truth, it is laced with the hidden currents of power, repression, and the unconscious will to dominate. To believe that love is pure is to misunderstand human nature. For love, in Freud's world, is always shadowed by forces we cannot see. Think of it this way: when a woman looks at a man and feels attraction, is it truly for his soul, or is it for the weight of his presence, the stability he radiates, the promise of protection? The unconscious does not concern itself with poetry, it concerns itself with survival and advantage. What the conscious mind calls love, the unconscious mind calls strategy. A smile becomes a test, a touch becomes a measure, and the bond itself is a negotiation of strength. Freud believed repression shapes our desires, that what we claim to want is often the opposite of what our unconscious seeks. Women may speak of love, of connection, of romance, but within the hidden chambers of the psyche lies something colder, the pull toward dominance, resources, and power. It is not that love is absent, it is that love is never free from calculation. Even passion has a price. Even desire has a direction. You see this truth revealed in the cruel clarity of history. How many women remained loyal to weak men when stronger ones appeared? How many times has love been sacrificed at the altar of power? It is an ancient story retold in countless forms. When invaders conquered cities, women did not cling to their defeated husbands, they attached themselves to the conquerors. To the outsider, it looked like betrayal. But to the unconscious, it was survival. Freud would say, the heart is a liar, the unconscious never is. What we call falling out of love often masks the deeper law, that desire shifts when power shifts. When a man loses his authority, his confidence, his ability to command the world around him, the unconscious mind of the woman recalibrates. The very desire that once drew her to him begins to recoil. She does not choose this consciously. It happens in silence, like a tide pulling away from the shore. This is why relationships often unravel not with a scream but with a quiet withdrawal. A woman grows distant, not because she has stopped believing in love, but because her unconscious has already made its judgment, the balance of power has changed. Love is conditional, bound not by the ideals of romance but by the laws of instinct. In this way, Freud's insight becomes terrifyingly clear: desire is never what it seems. It is not innocent, it is not free, it is not divorced from survival. It is, at its root, a hidden economy of power. And women, bound by the weight of history and biology, often act not as lovers in the romantic sense, but as agents of an unconscious strategy that ensures they do not gamble with weakness. Hypergamy. A cold word, clinical and sharp, yet it names a force older than empires, older than the myths carved into stone. It is the silent gravity pulling women upward toward men of greater power, higher status, deeper influence. To speak of it is to strip away the illusions of romance and expose the engine turning behind desire. We are told love is blind, but hypergamy proves the opposite. Love sees very clearly, perhaps too clearly. It sees the ladder of power, and it climbs. Biology whispers its command first. For countless generations, a woman's survival, and the survival of her children, depended not on fleeting passion but on securing a mate who could provide, protect, and prevail. The weak man risked extinction, the strong man promised continuity. Nature carved this instinct so deeply into the psyche that it operates even when denied, even when dressed in modern ideals of equality. It is the invisible hand guiding choice, the hidden script behind attraction. But biology alone is not enough to explain the persistence of hypergamy. Nietzsche's concept of the will to power reveals the deeper truth. For Nietzsche, life itself is not about comfort, nor about happiness, but about the expansion of strength, the climb toward greater heights. In this sense, hypergamy is not simply a strategy of survival, it is an alignment with the very current of life. By choosing the stronger man, the man with status, the man who bends others to his will, a woman is not merely securing protection, she is joining her destiny with the arc of ascending power. Love becomes secondary. What matters is that she binds herself to the man who embodies victory. History is full of examples where this instinct shatters the illusion of romantic devotion. When wars ended, when thrones fell, when empires shifted, women moved with the tides of dominance. Consider the phenomenon of war brides after World War II. Tens of thousands of women left behind their families, their nations, even their children, to attach themselves to the foreign soldiers who emerged victorious. Was this love? Perhaps on the surface. But underneath was the undeniable magnetism of power. The conqueror embodies survival. His embrace offers entry into a future secured by force. And this is not limited to times of war. In every era, in every culture, women have gravitated toward men who stand higher on the social ladder. The nobleman over the farmer, the wealthy merchant over the beggar, the leader over the follower. Even today, in modern cities lit by neon instead of fire, the same dynamic unfolds. The woman in the crowded bar does not simply scan for charm or beauty. She looks for presence, for the man who commands attention when he enters, whose confidence radiates like armor. Money, fame, authority, these are not superficial traits. They are signals of the deeper archetype, the man of power. To men, this often feels cruel, even merciless. A man may believe that love should be enough, that devotion and tenderness should secure a woman's loyalty. But hypergamy operates beneath conscious choice. It is not a matter of morality, it is an ancient program running silently, reshaping desire according to the hierarchy around her. When a woman sees a stronger man, her unconscious does not ask, "Do I love him?" It asks, "Could he secure a better future?" And desire begins to shift, subtle at first, then undeniable. This is why so many men experience betrayal not as a sudden event, but as a gradual erosion. The woman grows restless, distant, dissatisfied. The man believes he has done something wrong, but often it is not about him at all, it is about the ladder she sees, the higher rung calling to her. Her instincts are not bound by his love, they are bound by power's pull. It is here that Nietzsche's insight becomes most brutal. Love itself may be a mask for the will to power. The romantic story is the sugar coating, but beneath it lies the same primal drive, to align oneself with strength, to climb higher, to never remain where weakness lingers. Hypergamy is not betrayal, it is the enactment of life's most ruthless law. And for women, to ignore it would be to gamble with fate, a gamble evolution has punished for millennia. Thus, when a woman chooses the man of power over the man of love, she is not being cruel, she is being faithful to the darker truth of existence. Hypergamy is the psyche's silent allegiance to power, the instinctual recognition that love fades but power reshapes destiny. And whether in the halls of ancient palaces or the crowded clubs of modern cities, the pattern remains the same. The heart bends, the story twists, but the will to power endures. Love, for men, often feels like surrender, a plunge into vulnerability, a leap of faith. But for women, love is rarely given without measure. It is not simply affection offered freely, it is a crucible, a silent battlefield where power is weighed and tested. What looks like romance on the surface is, at its core, an ongoing evaluation. A woman's love is rarely unconditional, it is contingent upon strength. Not only physical strength, but the strength of mind, of will, of presence. The kind of strength that can weather storms without collapsing. The Stoics once warned, "What you love owns you." To a man, this means he risks becoming enslaved to desire, blinded by devotion. But to a woman, the phrase takes on a darker shape. If she gives her love to a man who is weak, she too becomes enslaved, tied to a failing destiny. And so, she does not simply give her love away. She tests it, she tests him. Every silence, every withdrawal, every moment of coldness is not always cruelty. It is examination. Consider the infamous silent treatment. Men often interpret it as punishment or immaturity. But what if it is something far more primal? Silence is a void, and into that void the man is thrown. How does he react? Does he panic, beg, lose composure? Or does he remain still, calm, grounded, unshaken? In that silence, a man's true essence is revealed. It is a ritual, a trial, an experiment in dominance disguised as distance. Even jealousy, suspicion, or emotional games can be seen in this light. When a woman flirts with absence, when she withdraws affection, when she introduces doubt, it is not always betrayal. It is the testing of boundaries. She is asking, unconsciously, is this man strong enough to withstand me? Is his power greater than my storm? If he fails, the mask of love shatters. If he succeeds, her attraction deepens, for he has proven he can carry her chaos without breaking. Jung understood this in his exploration of the anima. The feminine psyche, he argued, carries both nurturing light and destructive shadow. To face a woman in love is to face both forces. She offers comfort, but she also offers trial. Her very presence challenges the man. Do you stand as master of yourself, or will you collapse under the weight of her emotions? Love, then, is not simply a gift, it is a gauntlet. This is why women often lose respect for men who crumble in the face of their tests. A man who argues back in desperation, who grovels, who submits too easily, he reveals weakness. And weakness kills desire. She is not consciously choosing this outcome, it emerges from something far older, coded into the psyche. Attraction survives only when the man shows that he can dominate his own impulses, maintain his ground, remain unshaken by her storms. The paradox is brutal. The very games men despise are often the rituals by which women measure their worthiness. Love is not destroyed by these tests, it is forged in them. Just as iron is tested by fire, so too is a man's strength tested by the storms of a woman's love. What appears irrational, cruel, or manipulative is often the unconscious enactment of a deeper law. Love, to endure, must prove itself against power. Thus, every silence, every withdrawal, every sudden distance carries a symbolic weight. It is not merely an emotional whim. It is the timeless echo of an instinct that asks, can this man stand firm? Can he command himself, and by extension, command the world? For in the end, love is not separate from power, it is power, disguised as intimacy, revealed only through trial. Every story of love eventually collides with the shadow of time. What begins with fire and trembling hands often ends with silence, with absence, with the realization that passion is fleeting. Love burns brightly, but its light is fragile. Power, however, has a different nature. It endures, it adapts, it transforms into legacy. And this is why, again and again, women are drawn toward power, even when it demands the sacrifice of love. Jung warned us that within every woman lives both the nurturer and the destroyer. She is the mother who protects life, but also the figure of the dark anima, the siren, the queen, the manipulator who chooses empire over intimacy. This duality explains why love alone is rarely enough. Love satisfies the heart, but power secures the future. To invest in love without power is to gamble with impermanence, and women, bound by ancient instinct, rarely gamble for long. Look through history, and the pattern reveals itself. Queens married kings not out of affection, but to bind their bloodlines to empires. Cleopatra abandoned lovers when their thrones fell, aligning herself with Caesar, then with Antony, not for romance but for survival and expansion. Even in modern times, the same dynamic persists in subtler forms. Celebrities, heiresses, and women of influence consistently choose men who embody wealth, status, or dominance, even when those men cannot offer genuine intimacy. The calculation is simple: love fades, but the fruits of power ripple into generations. On a psychological level, this is about security. A woman who chooses love without power risks betrayal, abandonment, or ruin. But a woman who aligns herself with power, even at the cost of romance, ensures continuity. Her children inherit influence, her name attaches to strength, her survival is insulated from chaos. Love feeds the moment, power builds the fortress. And when the two are in conflict, the fortress prevails. Men, blinded by devotion, often fail to see this truth. They offer love as if it were enough, believing their sincerity will outweigh all else. But sincerity is fragile when measured against the world's brutality. A man may say, "I love you," but if he cannot protect, if he cannot provide, if he cannot command respect in the eyes of others, his words ring hollow. The unconscious knows this. A woman may still feel affection, but her instinct warns her that affection alone cannot withstand storms. And so, she withdraws, often silently, and realigns herself with strength. Even the stories we tell betray this law. Fairy tales speak of princes, kings, warriors, never of poor, forgotten men. The archetype of the powerful male has always been the vessel of female desire, while the powerless man remains invisible, erased from history. This is not cruelty, it is survival disguised as narrative. The myths remember the strong because women remembered them first. In this way, love becomes less of an end and more of a stage, a temporary performance that precedes the deeper choice. Power is what lasts beyond the curtain. Power is what determines whether the story is remembered, whether the bloodline survives, whether the woman herself is secured against oblivion. And so, again and again, when love collides with power, it is love that is sacrificed. The tragedy for men is that they believe love to be the foundation, when in truth it is only the surface. Beneath it lies the darker current, the survival law that whispers, choose the man who can shape destiny, not the man who offers only his heart. Love promises moments, power promises immortality. And immortality, in the end, is the choice women have been making since the dawn of time. So ask yourself, when a woman chooses you, is she choosing your heart or your power? Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Perhaps what we call love is only fate in disguise, a fate written not by passion, but by the silent hand of power.